Hey guys, welcome to another episode of PG Comics. I'm Mark Bridge, and I'm here to review another Omnibus. This time it's from Grant Morrison, and it's Batman. Now, the thing about Grant Morrison, he's like a hit and miss kind of guy. I would say the first experience I had with Grant Morrison was with the new X-Men. Now, I'm a big, huge, enormous, ginormous X-Men fan. And when I got back into comics, because I used to read comics back in the days, then I stopped and then got back into X-Men, I decided to, I picked it right back up when Chris Claremont came back, when he did that run on both the titles, X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. And then it was deemed too not fan friendly, especially the fact that the movies came out and they couldn't really leave the films and go back to the books, the comic books, because it was just not friendly to new readers. Now, in order to combat that, Marvel decided to do sort of like a little reboot, so to speak. Not reboot in the sense of like they're starting over, but just more of a cleansing of the palette of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel comic book universe. One of them was creating the Ultimate lines, but the other was like taking the established line, especially for X-Men, getting a new writer, new creative team on board, and sort of crafting it to look more like the movies did. So one of the books was the X-Men title, which they retitled New X-Men, from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely and Igor and a bunch of other artists. But Grant Morrison was the new creative leadership on that title. Now, at the time when I read his work, I was just, it was like I kind of missed the spandex stuff, but I was still reading his things. I just wasn't into the art so much because I was coming from artists like Andy Kubert and Joey Mad and Jim Lee and all those guys. Will Spataccio, all those artists, man. And just to have this weird looking art from Frank Quitely, I was like, whatever. But it was later in life that I appreciated that run. Now, I say that to say that Grant Morrison, that was my first time with Grant Morrison, and then I read other Grant Morrison stuff as well, like Action Comics when he took over the new DC 52 version. And I will say this about Grant. His writing style is, how do I say it? Like, it's all about the cerebral effect, I guess. Like, it's less on emotion, because a lot of random shit will just happen in his run of all the books, including X-Men. But I think X-Men was this least complicated run, because it's just hard to make X-Men complex than it already is. So it's just like, let's just go with it. X-Men is already complex with its characters, with its relationships with other characters and stuff like that. That overly complicating it would just, that's a big no-no. So, we were used to that with X-Men, so there wasn't too much complication you could bring to that. But then when you have your singular heroes now, and you just want to tell these weird stories and all these stories that have world building involved and all these complex movements, Grant is good with that. But the thing what he does that I don't like is that the emotions of that is gone. All you're seeing is these random events happening, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. And then towards the later run, while he's winding down his run, all those random shit that you saw in the earlier parts of it start making sense. Now, that's cool and all, but if I have no emotional ties to the events that preceded your climax, then it's like, all I had to say was, that was clever. But I was just like, it's not like, oh shit, I hope that person doesn't die, or you know what I mean? Because it's just these random things that just happen that means nothing. But then, if you know Grant Morrison and you read a lot of his stuff, then I guess that start to make sense. It's like nothing is random in any of his run. It'll make sense in the long run. You just gotta stick with it. But the emotional aspect, he could just never grab me emotionally. So I'm reviewing his run. This is volume 1 of Batman. There's supposed to be 3 volumes. This is when he just started with Batman. Well, not just, because he wrote earlier stories, but I'm saying like a full run of Batman. This is when he started. In this run, he introduces Damian Wayne. Now, Damian Wayne was actually a character that they brought up, I think, in an earlier Batman, and it just wasn't canon, and they got rid of him. And that's another thing that he's known to do. Grant Morrison is known to be like, what he does is he'll look at the especially if he takes on a non-original property, like, you know, X-Men or Superman or Batman in this case. He'll look at the history of the character, and he will pick out some random shit that happens in an earlier time that really nobody considers canon because it was so old-fashioned. And then he'll sort of incorporate it in his run to make it canon. Not only make it canon, he'll put a weird dark twist on it. And he does that with a lot of stuff. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It works with X-Men, it didn't work with Action Comics. It worked with this, even though I have my misgivings about his run here. One of which is there's a lot of random shit happens, right? Even straight to the beginning, right? I'm gonna put, you know, edit clearer footage, clearer pictures, but, you know, just to give you just a hint of his run. You know, these are just some of the stuff that happens. Andy Kubert, like I said, he's like my 3rd favorite artist, so he works. So he's on this book. Let me just take the dust jacket off. So this run collects Batman 655 to 658, and then it's, I guess it skips it and goes to 663 to 683, and it collects like excerpts from DC 0 and 52 and 30 and 47. Sorry, DC 0 and 52. I guess that run that was going on, 52, 30, and 47. So yeah, and I guess recaps events from the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, which I didn't go by the recap. I actually went and read that full storyline because the recap of it was dumb. Because Grant Morrison only contributed 2 issues out of that major storyline, and that wouldn't work for me. I had to get the full length. So this is the dust jacket right over there, and this is how it looks without the dust jacket. It's pretty simple, but, you know, I like the glossiness of it all. And then going back to how it looks in the interiors, you know, like I said, I'm going to insert better looking pictures of it just based on what I'm talking about. This is from Batman R.I.P. It's a cool storyline, but weird. Like, that's one of the major things I can say about this run. It's cool, but it's weird as shit, right? And right off the back, like in the beginning, it starts out just weird. It's just like these weird things that's happening. I guess Batman is going on a walkabout or something like that, and he goes into a cave and comes out, and he's like, I guess, good. I think this takes place after Infinite Crisis, so I haven't read that yet. So I think a lot of stuff that happens in Infinite Crisis affects Batman in a way that I guess when he actually comes out, he has to deal with that, whatever the consequences of that. Like I said, I didn't read it, so I'm not 100% sure. Then his run on the Batman actually starts, and right off the bat, there's some random. It's like a Joker thing that's happening. Something with Joker, and then Joker gets shot in the face, and you see a Batman with a gun, and then you see a Batman with him. You don't know what that, you know. It's just and it happens so quick. That's a thing. Like he's not the artist. Grant Morrison is not the artist, but he gives his artist directions, And that's one of the things, like, you would dedicate a single panel to something that will become a big plot point later, and it's just a single panel, and because it's such a insignificant small panel, like by the time you get to the bigger picture, you're done forgot about what that small panel represent, such as the fact that you saw Batman with a gun, and it takes a long time to pay that off. Like, who is this Batman with the... First of all, I didn't even know that was a different Batman until like later in the story, and then it was like, oh, okay. And then another story, there's this huge Bane-looking Batman that shows up, and it's like another random thing. There was no explanation of where that Batman came from. There's no history behind him. All you know is that he is taking a lot of sort of prostitute. He's being fed prostitutes by some corrupt cops, and he's killing them or whatever. And Batman goes in and fights that, and he beats him up. Weird and random. And again, it pays off later that you find out that they have been sort of training these Bat characters to replace Batman, either when he dies or they want to replace Batman. And you had 3 of them. One of them had the gun, one of them was the big dude, and another one, I don't even remember what happened to the character. Again, random stuff happens to these things that you forget. You forget certain elements because they're just so random events. And then, because I haven't been reading Batman for like 50 years, a lot of stuff that would resonate with someone who has a deep history with Batman doesn't necessarily resonate with me. It just comes off as weird, as in the storyline, the Black Glove storyline, where he meets the International Club of Heroes, and these are characters that appeared in, I want to say, the Silver Age or Golden Age of Batman, long time ago, when all the colorful stuff happened, when Batman wasn't as dark, when you had the go yippee kind of Batman, and he hung out with a bunch of different heroes from different I think they called the Batman of other nations or something like that, which is something that Grant will play into later in his run with Batman Incorporated, which I never read, but I think I see the bindings of what he was trying to do here, where he took elements of what came from the past with the Black Glove and having the International Club of Heroes, or Batman of other nations, and sort of building on that for his. So like I said, the beginning story of this is Batman and Son introducing Damian Wayne to the canon, to make it official, where he had Damian with Talia al Ghul. And I read that storyline, I think it was called Son of the Demon or something like that. One of those demon storylines that had to do with Ra's al Ghul and Ra's trying to... Is he either Ra's or Raish? I call him Ra's, I don't care. So it has to do with Ra's trying to get the detective, or Batman, to be the new demon head, to take over. And of course, Talia al Ghul was in love with him, and they made love and had Damian. Now Damian eventually became a fan favorite. Like this he's the 4th Robin now, but because I watched the Batman versus Robin, or I think it was Batman and Son animated, and the way how that ended, it sort of like truncated a lot of stuff that happens in this, and right at the end he becomes Robin. It's not that way in this one. Batman and Son storyline ended with Damian Wayne going with his mom, leaving Bruce, and then you meet up with him later, and stuff happens. A lot of things happen, and then later in the story, that's when he sort of comes back to Bruce, and then I guess that kicks off the Batman and Robin storyline, which would be Volume 2, that has Dick Grayson as Robin. Dick Grayson as Batman. He left the Nightwing moniker, took up the mantle of the Bat, and Robin became and Damian Wayne became Robin, his Robin. So what else? So you have Batman and Son. You had the Black Glove, which was like a mystery of who was killing. It's kind of like Watchmen, where you had the Minutemen or whatever, and then one of their members was killing another member. So it's one of those things, and then you find out about the Order of the Black Glove. You didn't find out exactly a lot about them until later on in the RIP storyline. So you had the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. He comes back. So that's one of the storylines that happens in this. In that Ra's wanted to use Damian's body as his new vessel. Batman stops that, and Ra's gets a new body, and nothing really happens in that front. We move on to like little random one shots. You have an issue of where Damian Wayne is Batman, so it's like a future storyline where Damian Wayne is Batman, and he's hunting all these Batman characters, and he's hunting these different characters, and what's her name? Barbara Gordon. She's like the new commissioner, and she's hunting him for whatever reason. Like I said, random things that really, all it does is really give you a sense of maybe this is what Grant is hinting that Damian Wayne will play a very important role in Batman's life going forward. This is just hinting at his run now, and that's the thing with Grant, is like whenever he takes on any of these properties, it's so out there that, so a lot of times the publishers give him the freedom to do whatever he wants, and there's like, we'll just reboot it later, call it non-canon. I don't care. They did that with X-Men when he said his version of Magneto was this crazy maniac that just went apeshit and destroyed New York. And literally after he left, they revealed, oh, that's not the real Magneto. It's like, they don't care. As long as they'll give him the carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, just as long as they maintain the freedom to retcon it anytime they want. And retcon they have from time to time. Every time he takes on these huge characters, and he does crazy shit with them, they just retcon it after. It's like, we like that aspect, we don't like that aspect, we'll retcon that, but we'll keep that. And that's the kind of stuff they do with Grant Morrison's run all the time. They kept the Damian Wayne thing, but I don't know if they're going to keep the fact that he grew up to be Batman. Who knows? Maybe they do. I don't know. And then other major storylines, I guess you have the Batman RIP. So in the course of the storyline, he meets this woman called Jezebel Jet. He falls in love with her and whatnot, and then it turns out that she works for the organization, spoiler alert, the Black Glove. And the Black Glove is consistent of a lot of characters. Like, they're super rich, but they want to see Batman fall, and they had this elaborate plan ever since the beginning. I guess things from that may or may not have happened in earlier comics and earlier Batman history. I don't know. Like, for instance, the fact that Batman went under, in order to figure out how Joker operates, he put himself in a drug-induced state for 10 days in this like isolation chamber to get a sense of like how crazy Joker can get. This may or may not happen. I didn't bother doing research if it did or not, or maybe this is something that Grant made up. But this happened, and it's from a doctor called Simon Hurt. And so, apparently, what Simon did was he put like this sort of like code word in him while he was in that state that will shut him down whenever the time is right. But Batman, in his infinite wisdom, decided that he wanted to prepare himself for any eventuality, from poison. If he's not immune to certain poison, he makes sure he carries an allotment of antidotes so that he can use it if he's poisoned. But he also knows that people would want to mess with his mind, and he wanted to make sure that if someone was ever to tamper with his mind, that he himself would implant something that would counteract that, where the Batman persona would fully take over. And so that was his counteract to this guy's putting this code word that would shut him down. So when he shut him down, he becomes this new Batman that's just Batman, moving on full strength, full speed, doesn't give a shit. That story would have been the most awesome story if it wasn't preceded by a bunch of crazy, nonsensical, random shit happening here and there. And it has an appearance by this character called Batmite, which was again from the Golden/Silver Age era, which I wasn't reading comics then, so I wouldn't know. But Batmite is a character, and this is the type of stuff that Grant Morrison does. He just takes odd stuff from different eras that really nobody paid attention to, especially for the new generation of comic book readers, and he just decided to throw that in and make it canon. And that's what he did. And at the end of it, the Batman RP storyline, he supposedly dies, but he doesn't really die in that, because he ends up in the Final Crisis storyline where he actually dies, which I haven't read yet, which I'm dreading reading because a lot of people said it was just like a mind fuck. You couldn't really follow it or whatever. But I'll get to it. I'll get to all the Crisis storylines. I've been more of a Marvel guy, so I read a lot of Marvel stuff, but I'm getting on my DC grind. So I'll be doing a lot of DC stuff as well on this channel. But needless to say, just my overview of this storyline, of this book. I'm excited to pick up volume 2 and 3 when they eventually come out. But like I said, it's Grant Morrison. It's a lot of random stuff happening, a lot of random storylines, but I guess it makes sense in the end. I'll give him that he does find a way to tie everything in. It's just that the emotion aspect of it it isn't there. You know what I mean? You don't emotionally latch onto some of the randomness that's happening. Like, oh, you know, it's all about, okay, I gotta sort of, as soon as you get to a new issue, it's like, all right, let me get my bearings straight. Where am I? What's this character doing? Okay, I got it, good. And then by the time you got it good, the issue's done, and it's on to the next one, and you gotta take that same mentality over and over and again until everything wraps up and everything ties up into a nice little bow, which is good that it does. So that's one thing you can always count on when it comes to Grant Morrison, that will tie everything up, but you just gotta prepare for the randomness. Alright, so that was my little overview of Grant Morrison's Batman Omnibus Volume 1. Stay tuned for Volume 2 and 3 when they come out. So let me know what other Grant Morrison stories that you guys love. What do you appreciate it? Do you like his writing? Do you not like his writing? Let me know in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button and get me on that road to 1,000 subscribers. And like and comment, hit that notification bell and all that jazz. So until next time, folks, peace.